All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the microscopic, totally interconnected maintenance systems that are keeping your biological factory running perfectly 24/7. I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about what is happening inside you at this exact second just to keep you sitting upright and breathing? It's honestly nothing short of a physiological miracle.
So, what actually separates the living from the non living? We usually think of obvious, visible things like running or breathing as signs of life, right? But let's look at this at a cellular level. A rock doesn't need to eat, breathe, or repair itself, but you do. While those visible movements are the most obvious indicators, biology tells us that even resting seeds or viruses hiding out in host cells are completely reliant on invisible molecular movements to survive.
And the real answer lies right there in those invisible molecular movements. Specifically, these essential life processes that continuously repair and maintain your body's structures to prevent cellular breakdown. Think about it. Even when you're fast asleep, your internal systems are literally working overtime. Your cells constantly undergo wear and tear, and they need a continuous, nonstop supply of energy to repair broken tissues and synthesize new molecules. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We are going to explore four main operational departments of our biological factory. Number one, nutrition, acquiring the fuel. Number two, respiration, unlocking cellular energy. Number three, transportation, the biological highway. And number four, excretion, removing toxic waste.
Let's jump right into part one, nutrition, acquiring the fuel.
You know, there's a really sharp contrast in how different organisms actually get this fuel. Autotrophs, like green plants, basically act as their own solar-powered factories. They synthesize organic food from simple inorganic materials. On the other hand, heterotrophs, like us humans, well, we can't photosynthesize. We depend entirely on consuming other organisms to get our preformed organic nutrients. To see this whole thing in its absolute simplest form, just look at the single-celled amoeba. It neatly acquires and processes its fuel in three highly efficient steps. It starts with ingestion, using these temporary finger-like extensions of its cell surface called pseudopodia to engulf a food particle. This forms a little food vacuole. Inside that vacuole, step two begins, digestion and absorption. Complex substances are chemically broken down into simpler ones that easily diffuse directly into the cytoplasm. And finally, egestion. The remaining undigested material is simply moved to the cell surface and thrown out. It's an incredibly elegant, self-contained little system. Now, for us humans, it's a bit more of a massive operation. It's essentially an intricate biological assembly line. Up in your mouth, your teeth chew the food while saliva immediately starts breaking down sugars. Then it travels down to the stomach, which uses powerful acids and enzymes to break down proteins, cleverly protecting itself with a thick layer of mucus, by the way. Finally, the food reaches the small intestine. This is the main processing floor, where fats are dissolved, digestion is finalized, and tiny little structures called villi absorb all those hard-earned nutrients into your body. Moving right along to part two, respiration, unlocking cellular energy. So getting nutrients into the cells is really only half the battle. Now we actually have to unlock them to create usable cellular energy. All cells start by breaking down glucose in the cytoplasm, but what happens next totally depends on oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, our mitochondria perform highly efficient aerobic respiration, yielding a massive amount of ATP energy. But during heavy exercise, when oxygen is suddenly scarce, muscle cells are forced to resort to anaerobic respiration. This alternate pathway produces lactic acid, which, if you've ever worked out too hard, is exactly what causes those painful muscle cramps. And to get that vital oxygen in the first place, your diaphragm flattens out, expanding your chest cavity, basically like a giant bellows. Air is drawn in through your nose, travels down a branching pathway, past your windpipe, through the bronchi, and deep, deep into the lungs, until it finally reaches these tiny, balloon-like air sacs called alveoli.
Now, this is absolutely fascinating to me. These microscopic alveoli are designed to expand and provide a truly massive surface area, which maximizes the efficiency of gas exchange with your blood. To put that into perspective, if you were to unfold and lay out all the alveoli in your lungs, they would cover a staggering amount of space, roughly the size of an entire tennis court. No way, right? But it is entirely by design. A massive surface area ensures that oxygen can rapidly diffuse into the blood capillaries, while carbon dioxide waste diffuses out just as quickly.
That brings us to part three, transportation, the biological highway. Here's the thing. We've got the fuel and we've got the oxygen, but now we have to actually deliver them to trillions of individual cells. Because we're so large, simple diffusion is just way, way too slow to transport essential gases and nutrients to our deepest cells. It demands a specialized highway system. In a single-celled organism like that amoeba we looked at earlier, simple diffusion works perfectly fine because the entire cell is in direct contact with the environment. But in a complex, multicellular body like ours, our inner cells are completely isolated from the outside world. If we relied only on simple diffusion to move oxygen from our lungs all the way down to our toes, it would literally take years.
So to solve this massive logistics problem, we use a powerhouse four-chambered heart, driving a double circulation system. It essentially acts as two pumps working in perfect unison. One side pumps oxygen-poor blood to the lungs to refuel, while the other simultaneously blasts freshly oxygenated blood out to the rest of the body. This complete separation prevents waste blood from ever mixing with fresh blood, which is exactly what makes our high-energy, warm-blooded lifestyle possible.
But hey, humans aren't the only ones with these biological highways. Plants rely on their own, totally wild dual transport system. They use xylem, which is made mostly of dead tissues, to suck water and minerals upwards like a giant straw through evaporation. Meanwhile, the phloem uses the plant's active energy to pump synthesized food from the leaves to wherever it's needed, routing it both up and down the stem.
And finally, part 4, excretion, removing toxic waste.
Because think about it, all of this continuous manufacturing and energy production naturally creates toxic byproducts. If you don't dispose of this waste properly, the whole factory just shuts down. Deep inside your kidneys are millions of microscopic filtration plants called nephrons. Blood is forced through a bundle of capillaries under really high pressure. But your body's incredibly smart. As this fluid winds its way through a complex tube, the kidney selectively pulls the good stuff, like glucose and water, right back into the bloodstream. What's left behind is concentrated, toxic metabolic waste, primarily urea, which is then sent straight to the bladder as urine.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to consider this for a second. Millions of nephrons filtering, a four-chambered heart pumping, countless alveoli exchanging gases, and a highly tuned digestive tract breaking down fuel. Trillions of cells acting independently, yet flawlessly coordinating at this exact second, just to keep you sitting upright and watching this. If this staggering level of complexity is what it takes just to maintain the baseline of life, imagine what else your biological factory is capable of. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the blueprint of life.